we're talking qualitative research. So when you do literature, by and large, it is an exercise of subjectivity that needs high levels of rigor, because you are looking to postulate either evidence for policy in healthcare or in social science or in government. So it's very, very important to understand different approaches, right? So qualitative research, or QES, also known as metasynthesis. I think a lot of people talk of it as metasynthesis, and a number of people also still go back to the old identification of the method known as qualitative systematic review. Is part of a typology within a full body of systematic reviews. But it's very important that those that do literature review, as the word says systematic, they understand the importance of systematic approaches to formulating a proposition for investigation, or to come up with evidence of what works, or to come up with an intervention as well. So a systematic review as well, it employs these explicit procedures that ensure heightened rigor in the method that you are doing literature review. Colleagues, it's time that we don't do literature for the purpose of only summarizing papers. It's no longer according to, or is no longer so and so postulated, but we need to be bringing up literature that is free from bias. So the methods of actually selecting that literature must be subjected to a rigor that demonstrates that it is not at all a biased approach. So what is a good paper? Why do we have a good paper? But before we go to a good paper, let's look at these methods. Why QES methods in review? First, QES methods, they have emerged as a response to growing demand from health professionals, policymakers, guideline developers, and educators for review of evidence that extends beyond just understanding what works. So it is taken beyond a pragmatic appeal, but it must go further to support what is called DDDM, that is data-driven decision-making. So literature should support that, because I work as well in my country in South Africa. I also work and take assignments with some government and private institutions where we're looking at strategies. And when you come up with a strategy or an annual or a 5-year strategy, it must be informed by evidence of that what works, and then take it further to say this can be implemented. I think, colleagues, literature review as well was seen to be important during the time of COVID-19, when studies for interventions became very, very critical, and to solve social problems, not for the purpose of merely attaining a qualification, but to go beyond, because it's our responsibility as researchers to go beyond just attaining a master's or a doctorate degree, but we are called to make an impact based on our research. So that's where it came from. But also these methods are designed to address questions that complement those that are answered in the normal systematic review or even meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is a quantitative dynamic or dimension of systematic review. That's meta-analysis. But now we're looking at meta-synthesis approaches. But I'll later tell you why we are sticking on the word QES as recommended by the Cochrane collaboration in the UK, the Campbell collaboration in the US, and the Johanna Briggs Institute in Australia, that are seen as leading organizations that regulate how these types of research methods are conducted. So it's not necessarily you just deciding to write and be subjective, but it must stick to particular protocols. And I believe I see universities and institutions that are looking for intervention research taking these methods seriously. Now, the type of questions that you need to integrate into a literature review should aim to deepen understanding of a specific phenomenon. So, deepen understanding. And an example I'm giving here is individual experiences for adapting in remote work during COVID-19. So we remember qualitative research is about opinions and experiences and how these experiences are constructed and experienced again. So it's about that. So we need then to deepen our understanding so that when we come up with policy or with an intervention, it addresses that. But also questions should enhance understanding not only of the deepest insights about the phenomenon, but the values, the attitudes. And we used to do this a lot when I was working with HIV. HIV used to be a serious pandemic in South Africa. And so we're literally at the forefront with research and intervention practices. And attitudes and views and values were critical to understand for any intervention that we put in place, but also to provide a detailed understanding of complexity of interventions. So you already have interventions. They are in place, but they are complex because they are dealing with diverse people, diverse groups and subgroups. So we need to use review questions and QES questions to understand those. So you can see that right away, when you get to a literature review, still asking you questions that are aligned to your research questions, but they must give you information that will help you, and for you to help you and to align to QES approaches. As per the title of my study, it says QES approaches. So these are some of those. Your questions must be clear, but must be absolutely clear. But also qualitative evidence questions complies with evidence from primary qualitative research. Remember, primary qualitative research are single studies that investigate a phenomenon. So now you are looking at the cumulative, but create new cumulative insights and knowledge. Now, this is very important because there's been a view or a school of thought that believes you cannot come up with new knowledge on looking at literature, but indeed you can literally come up with new knowledge by not merely integrating, but coming up with integrative descriptive themes, but taking them beyond descriptive themes to analytic themes. So that is what QES would help you in review of literature. The other thing is, again, the approach contrasts, obviously, traditional literature reviews. Traditional literature reviews, colleagues, are based on a good paper. But the good paper, you don't have methods of understanding how it passed. Remember that all papers we use in research, by and large, have already been published by journals. But do scholars have time to look at what is called high impact journals, so that if you are coming with intervention or evidence of what works, you need to know that you considered high impact journals. And how are those rated? And then how did you also look at the paper themselves? For instance, colleagues, most of the papers, when you look at them, you hardly find anything about ethics. Very few papers that will address ethics and even take it further. Can you still hear me? All right.
Yes, Doctor.
I just all right, that was a disturbing intervention there as well. I'm talking intervention studies, and there was an intervention. Thank you so much. So I am saying that it's very, very important that literature that we look at is critically appraised, not just taking it. So this approach contrasts, but it's also a good approach for those that want now to get funding for their research or support for their research or solve a broad problem like those I've made, in the previous slides. Now, depending on specific methods used, there are different methods in QES that you can use. One of them is thematic synthesis that looks at synthesizing data that is derived from critically appraised papers. So thematic synthesis is one of those. We know thematic analysis and qualitative research. So thematic synthesis is just the same, but it takes it further and looks at the descriptive themes and the analytic themes. But then you've got also framework synthesis. Then you've got meta-ethnography as well. So you'll see those in my chapter, and I'll flight it again just as I end. So you would see those approaches that can be used. But this one brings attention to findings that have may seem noteworthy in a single study. So all single studies are good. And but if it is a single study, sometimes it tends to be overlooked. It tends not to be picked up. But if single studies are looked and integrated to come to support what works, it then comes up as part of evidence. I always like when I make an example of hydroxychloroquine during the time of COVID-19, which could not be used because there weren't enough studies that evidenced it as an intervention. And others in South Africa, they even looked at interventions such as ivermectin. But there were no studies. The Department of Health put it up there. There were no studies that followed rigorous literature approach to support the use of ivermectin. So this is absolutely important for making decisions, right? So we know, I'm not going to dwell in this slide. To review is to view, is to inspect, is to examine. It's like tautology. It's like I'm repeating the same words, but I'm showing the emphasis. Because you don't just view it once, you view it in light of who is this author connected to? Who are talking about this? Is this current debate? So that's how you view. But also, you look at the ability to collate the resignation or sifting and putting apart, and ultimately the art of synthesizing the very essence and science of systematic review. Now, colleagues, you know that all scholars are expected to understand the important skills of critical analysis and synthesis. So this is all about that. So you're taking it a little bit high, to a high level. To save my time, I'll not, I've presented the slide. A lot of you had seen the slide that's gonna come. But the process: define a review question, develop a protocol, identify studies, and assess eligibility. That is very important. So where are you going to identify studies, and how are you going to assess eligibility? That is where the Costa QDA comes in. And I'll just do that little bit of a demonstration. All right. So you extract relevant data, and then you appraise these studies, you synthesize, and you disseminate. So those are the last part of the review process. The ultimate is to disseminate, is to show transparent ways that you've done literature. Very, very transparent, because transparency supports the scientific rule of replicability and reproducibility. One word, just used in different ways. All right. Okay. So these types are 14, but I just wanted us, I'm going to focus on the qualitative evidence synthesis, which is the last one here. But we've got rapid review. Another student I worked with selected a scoping review, but even though it doesn't have formal quality assessment, it does require certain methods of how literature was selected. But let's look at the last one in pink or in orange. I hope that color is pink or orange. So the appraisal in qualitative evidence is the quality assessment is to mediate these messages. What does that mean? The description is to integrate or compare the findings first from qualitative studies. It looks for themes and constructs and then assist in formulating decisions. And the approach obviously is qualitative, it's narrative, it's narrative synthesis, because it's qualitative research. So we've got to narrate and support how we came up with the findings that we got. So in this presentation, and as I go to now the software, I will focus on the thematic synthesis. But the oldest method is the meta-ethnography. So that is the older, as you can hear, ethno. So it looks for similar, very, very, very similar studies. It looks at what is called, it looks for more of homogeneity of the studies. So that is meta-ethnography, right? So, but let's just look at one important thing that the software will help you. The software that we have helps you in differentiating or in even taking further your protocols. Because if you compare, for instance, the meta-synthesis and the meta-analysis, you will see that as much as in meta-analysis, we're looking for exhaustive approaches in generating data, here we are more comprehensive, and the method of sampling is more purposive, because it's qualitative research, but purposive after critical appraisal, right? So I've said it even earlier, you'll use QES approaches to explore barriers, to explore different views, to inform prioritization of services where evidence on effectiveness is equivocal. I'll pass the characteristics because I've just made an example of it, and that's characteristics. But what I want to focus on is, why do we need to appraise papers, and why is Costa QDA one of the softwares that are assisting qualitative researchers? We need to appraise literature to address the argument to and for quality appeal in qualitative evidence synthesis. So again, colleagues, it's not a good paper just because I like so and so, but it is based on the usefulness of the paper. But also as educational apparatus for new entry researchers are now challenged to take their qualitative research to higher levels by demonstrating rigor, by demonstrating quality appraisal, but also reporting standards for qualitative studies used in qualitative evidence. And that's a protocol. There ought to be a particular standard that you use when you report. One of these reporting standards is the PRISMA, which all of us know in here, right? And then also a tool for streamlining appraisal of qualitative research studies and quality standard for different types of research, as I mentioned. All right. So there are 5 tools that I put here, but let me go back to the previous slide. There are 5 tools that are put here. However, the CASP, the top one that I put there, is the one that is highly recommended. Colleagues, and you'll agree with me, qualitative researchers, if you would understand CASP, you get requisite skills to understand qualitative research, and I'll demonstrate how. So, but it is useful because it improves transparency. It provides clear statements for standard reporting, as I said, but it assists the review process for evaluating manuscript for publication. It's got 10 criteria. We'll dwell on that, and they help you because they ask relevant questions on qualitative studies. And then it appraisal in qualitative evidence synthesis as well. The others, I'm not going to go through them, but they are there. So it's correct. Let me just touch on correct. Correct has got 32 criteria or 32 questions. It's very difficult, but the highly recommended one is created it in our system, right? Let me tell you, if you go to the website of CASP, colleagues, if you go to the website of CASP, you will also get a certificate. And sorry, my camera is off. You'll also get a certificate, and you will then it will enhance your competence. I've actually done it again. I've just done it recently. So it enhances your competence. And right now, let me go straight into the 10 key questions. So, and then it's like we are in class again for qualitative research, but the automation helps you to address on each and every paper you use. Was there a clear statement of the aims of the research in the paper that we are using? So there are hints on the software. It shows you that a clear statement could be either they said the aim of the study was, or the study was meant to respond to X, Y, Z, but they are there. The second one is qualitative methodology approach appropriate? Now, you can actually customize, even if it was a mixed method, but was the qualitative methodology approach appropriate? So when asked that question, colleagues, you know that when we do qualitative research, not enough to say the study was qualitative research. What design? What strategy informed that? There's about 13 of those, but the key ones, according to Creswell, is case study. But even if you said case study, what type of case study was it? Was it for the Union framework or theory? Was it Staken theory, or was it Merriam? You see, so there are many ways they talk about it. When Yin talks about descriptive, explorative, descriptive, and explanative research, Stake addresses it differently. Merriam addresses it differently. So this helps you to literally get deeper and understand, because if it's a case study, we need to know why the researcher in that paper you are analyzing, why they chose a single case study or a collective or an instrumental case study or a multiple case study. Why? What was the rationale? So this question is asking for that. So it's not just a qualitative methodology, it's deeper. And it talks to question number 3 as well about the research design. But also the recruitment strategy that was used, that is your sampling, was the recruitment strategy appropriate to the aims of the research? Where the data collected in a way that addressed the research issue. So data collection, and you will know, colleagues, that if you're talking phenomenology, and depending on which variation of phenomenology, is it transcendental phenomenology or is it hermeneutic phenomenology, the research, the data collection is predicated by the framework you've chosen. We don't see that in many papers. That is why methods of review in this approach, you'll see that somebody collected about 3,000 papers, but only 24 papers ended up meeting the criteria for looking at the evidence, because most of these questions are usually not there. So the software that I'm going to be showing just now addresses those issues, and I must just move to that because I'm mindful of my time. Right, so here's an example. In the software, the same question that I'm saying, here I took an example, 12 articles met criteria for appraisal. I haven't looked enough. Others go out because they are not written in English. Others go out, it goes down until you get to the level, to the last ones. It gets to the last ones. So I don't know. I see my team are moving here. Is not my presentation is not moving. Okay, let me see. Just a second. Why is my presentation not moving now? Can you hear me, colleagues?
Yeah, we can hear you, but you're
yes,
fading.
okay, we can hear you.
Can you still hear me?
Yes. Okay, so I think there's some connection problems.
Yeah, I'm sorry you lost me. I wonder at which slide. Did you lose me at this slide, colleagues? Did I disappear at the slide?
Yes. That is the slide.
So okay, thank you so much. So I had addressed this. I said, these are the 10 key questions that are automated in the software. But now I'm saying in the software, I made an example of 12 articles that we were actually appraising. And these articles, we took on the automated software and subjected them to the 10 questions you've seen in the previous slide. But you can see when you look at these were good articles, but the software automatically determined which ones to be included or not. When you present how you used your literature, and you present it in this format, it shows that your selection was not biased to what you like, but it was biased more to standards of rigor in selecting your papers. So the software assists you to that, and it saves you much time. And it saves it even more now, because what we've done, we've actually even created a chatbot. We've created a chatbot that looks at assisting in
Seems like Dr. King is frozen again.
Dr. E.G.
Yeah.
Yes, Pastor Pamphile.
Substitute him.
Come again?
Substitute him. I'm just kidding.
He was asking you to continue.
I'm still learning about this software.
Yeah, but this is an interesting software, Pastor Pamphile.
Yes.
Very.
Yes. Okay,
thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in. I'm literally struggling with connection here, but let's see. I'm almost there. So I'm saying it helps you to make decisions. So articles, and then you will take this and you put it in your paper as evidence to your supervisor or your reviewers, how you actually appraised these studies. But let's take it a little bit further before they cut me off again, whoever is the network provider. So also, these articles that you selected, you need now to literally say, who are they in the grand scheme of, looked at my article, current article in 2024 there, and you can see how it connects to a number of other articles and great scholars. And I can make an example, for instance, I can get it there from, oh, sorry, I forgot it's not online. I forgot it's not online. It is, screen sharing has stopped. Okay, let's see. I'm literally struggling and sweating now. Right. Let me go back to the previous slide. So I was here and I'm saying it's able to help you look at who are the gurus. Here I was looking at qualitative evidence synthesis. I wanted to give you an example. So you can see Fleming, you can see Lowen, you can see Booth, and Booth is one of these great scholars, and it tracks them down. So you know that the evidence that we come up with is based on the shoulders of the strong gurus. And we did not really come there with them because we liked them, but they became part of the presentation out of this rigorous approach. Right. Now, the last thing that I want to share, most, is that we have then taken the automation further by creating our own chatbot. And I said in our recent colloquium, it is our intention to literally create our own metaverse and our own holographic presenters, so that when we've got problems, they continue presenting. So this is, for instance, and now an interactive, a customized chat GPT on CASP, but it's programmed. We've already automated it and literally mathematically behind the scenes put these scores that we have seen, so that if you are reviewing large volumes of articles, reading all of these might be problematic for you. So you are actually able to upload it on there, and then it can keep. Then you can now start to interrogate, because remember, when we talk about using AI, AI must not do things for you, but you must guide it. It's an AI assistant. So even this Professor Costa here is an AI assistant for data analysis, and it is on the software. How much time do I still have, Program Director?
You have 7 minutes, though.
Sure. So within that 7 minutes, let me rather now go to a live demonstration and then demonstrate how you would do this on the software. Let me go in there, right? Just a moment, I'm going up live. Right. Let me share the screen within my 7 minutes. Thanks for that. So now I am live on the software itself. And I'll just do a demonstration with one paper. And this paper is written by, let me look at the one by Onebuzi, again, that I made an example. So let's say I am looking for the works of, yeah, all right, let me go to mine. Mine itself is this one, the Costa that you've seen, but you can see that I am live. So how you do that, how you upload on the software, you would have a particular study. Here, I've got Saldana, mapping Saldana's coding methods. It's written by Onebuzi. He's one of the greatest researchers. So what I'm going to do for this demo, I'll literally copy the DOI. So it works with the DOI to appraise literature, this software. So, and also note that this, we've only put it on the software. It is available. You can get local citation network outside of the software. We just linked it here to assist you so that you don't have to go anywhere else to look for your data. But you can literally go to Google, type local citation network. It is an open source software. But this is what it would do for you then. You would put in the DOI, and then when you do you enter it. Let me just go up. So I've just entered. You can see it's coming up. It's coming up, says 14%, 21%. So it's busy generating and mapping your authority that you are using in your literature to state to what extent does that authority earn the right to be used for you, so that you can say, according to so and so, what rights do they have in your literature? So you can actually use that software. And let me repeat, you can get local citation network outside, but what we've done with the Costa QDA, we put these together for you to make it more convenient. Now, let me go to full screen so that you see the paper that I just put. So now I'm going full screen, all right? So there you are. You can see it now. It's on full screen, but you probably see it halfway. So let me just make it work even much more nicer for you. See it sideways. And then, so it needs some more time to demonstrate, but I just wanted you to see how you could actually, right? So I'm now going to look for direction and say left to right. And then there you are. Now you are able to go get the entire map from the left to the right. And you can see where Onebuzi was writing articles, but it is linked to as far as Glass in 1976, to Yin in 1984, to Miles Huberman in 1994. So you can see any article that you use, it is actually part of a debate that has theoretically found its place some years ago and shows its relevance even in the currency of the time when you are presenting your literature. And that is all I wanted to present. Thank you so much, Program Director.
Wow, very good. Can we put our virtual hands together for Dr. King? Wherever you are, just put the virtual hands together for Dr. King. Dr. King Costa, thank you so much for your presentation. We actually wanted to see more live demo of it, but unfortunately our time is up. So colleagues, at this time we can entertain, let's say, 3 questions or 4 questions from any of you. You can just speak up from wherever you are. Just if you don't want to speak, you can write or be able to read, or Dr. King will also be able to read and address your question. Any
Dr.
question
King,
from?
Dr. King, just to start the conversation. So I'm quite new with this QES. I'm just wondering, how do you determine thematic saturation? You know, most of the time we determine it when we're tired of reading more articles, right? But since you have this Costa QDA, it seems that we can add hundreds of articles and still get more themes. So how do you determine saturation, or when do you stop adding articles to your QAS?
Yes, that's a very good question. Now, Dr. David, what's interesting is depending on what you're analyzing, but because we're talking about literature, up to 3,000 articles, more than that, and put them to inform your evidence. But the streamlining, first the eligibility criteria, and then the determination of the 10 cusp questions. Here's an example. If I am looking for a paper, or I'm reading the paper, and in the paper, there is no mention of how
Right.
Mr. Moderator, I think is offline again.
Yes. Let's wait until he comes back, maybe before 6.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very powerful software that he's showing, yeah? So it's...
Yes. And the question is how to access it. I try to access it, but I can't seem to find it on the web.
Did you catch whether he was saying that it's free, or is it an open source
I don't know
software,
if you
or is
say
it free?
to pay for it. First answer, when we I only see articles related to the software, not the software itself.
Yeah. So it's good to be able to identify the parent article of the article that you're reading, to trace back the ideas throughout the different articles. So that's a very powerful software. I think he's back now. Dr. King, are you back? Yeah, I think he has some technical problems there.
Connection issues.
Yes.
Oh, so I don't know if we can extend a few more minutes because of the connection issues. Maybe we extend 5 more minutes.
Yeah. Jasmine, how many minutes do you need for your announcements?
Okay, they've given me another laptop.
There you go.
All right.
Wait. So it's yeah, I think he's using another laptop. So let me spotlight him.
Have I answered?
Dr. King, you were disconnected before you were answering the question. So could you kindly repeat the answer?
Yeah. So I was saying that in literature review, what is more in this approach? What is more important is the criteria for inclusion and exclusion. And I made an example that most papers, when you look at them, they end up not qualifying. Right. Okay, I'm really struggling with technology this side. Yeah. So they end up not qualifying. And because of not qualifying for inclusion, then we have determined only 30 inclusion in the software, which is usually acceptable within case studies. But they never even reach 30, Dr. David.
Dr. King, you mentioned that this is open source software. Is it free, or I was under the impression that the Costa Web QDA is a paid software, the software that you created.
The Costa QDA is not open source, but the local citation network on its own is open source. But because there are functionalities in the QDA, it's not a free software.
I see.
All right.
Eddie, I see there's a
However,
question in the chat.
yes, so let me just
Yes.
finish that part. Whoever is in here, if they would submit their details to you, they will get free access for 12 months.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So those who are here will get access to it. Is that what I hear, Dr. King?
Yes, I'm saying those that are here, if you, they can provide details to Dr. David and
All right.
put up today's date so that we can see it on the system. And then we will send email to them and show them how they access. They will get free access for 12 months.
Wow, that's excellent, Dr. King.
Okay.
Because I'm seeing there are many PhD students around. I think there are more than 10 PhD students I'm seeing in the group. And this is a very good tool to hunt for parent articles, you know, trace the source of the ideas throughout different articles. So thank you, Dr. King.
Very good. So Dr. King, we have another question. The question reads as follows. How does the Costa card assist researchers in rigorously appraising the comparability and relevance of information using in solving real-life challenges?
I like that question. Indeed, the software was developed to deal with the real life challenges because it's more for those that are involved in policy making, in healthcare and in business. And there you're dealing with the real life situations every day, and in education. So what happens is that first is the refinement, proper refinement of the research question. And you refine it in terms of the review process. You can use Pico, you can use Spider, so that the question is directed to the exact population, participants within the population. If it's in healthcare, it's patients. And then the interest that you are looking at or the intervention that you are interested in. And then the comparator, so you already compare it to what is in place. And then what is the intended outcome of this? So that is number one. So it helps you because when you go to literature with a clear focus because the research question is directing you. But then the system, what it does, it helps you because you are then going to look at the findings of all these papers that were rigorously appraised and selected. Remember, the rigorous appraisal means that the paper at least meets up to 5, up to 6. All the papers that are rated below 6, they failed to be included. So from 6 upwards to 10, they are included. Now, what happens that those papers, you look at the findings from them, and then you start on the system to compare them and make an integrative comparison. Yes, I've answered now.
Thank you. I think the question was well answered. We can entertain one more question. I might have one, Dr. King. Maybe to be related to the previous one in terms of rigors, but I'll focus on the bias side. Based on your presentation, this question, the software actually understands or analyzes the research based on the 10 questions that you have, correct? And those are probably standardized questions. So the software reads that and then produces a report, correct?
Yes, yes.
So what if the paper that I'm reading fails to integrate the questions that your software understands? Will it produce a fair report?
Okay, because the software is to analyze and then produce a report based on this. And I would really like you colleagues to try it as I'm giving it free so that we can test it. But remember, the impetus is on the researcher to excavate, to go deeper, to find relevant literature. That is why softwares like local citation network, which we've also infused in here for easy use. They are helping you because you saw how I put on this paper, just one paper, but I got a repository of papers that are linked to the discussion that I was looking at. So the impetus is on the researcher. And I'm saying here, and I propose, colleagues, that even before you start with the proposal, it's important to understand literature and have critically appraised literature, because when you start with your proposal, you are literally proposing to close gaps that you found in literature. So review.
It's Thanksgiving in the US. Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Eddie, can you allow me one more question?
Yes, Doc, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, Dr.
But I have
Costa.
a
So
class on
these 10
Saturday,
questions
so
are very important,
here.
but maybe for other researchers, they might want to ask different questions.
Happy Thanksgiving.
So can your software
Is
be
there a Vietnamese
adjusted
equivalent of
and be used to answer different
just
questions,
like
not just the 10? Hello, Dr. King.
Dr. King?
You are muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I'm saying the software was created for broad qualitative data analysis and big data analysis. But what I presented at the moment was only a brief on literature review. There are many things that the software can do, but they are only focused on literature review. For instance, other researchers are using it to analyze transcripts after collecting transcripts in primary interviews. They are using it. So you can use it for quite a number of things. Actually, let me tell you something. If I had time, I would have demonstrated. You can do what is called a semantic analysis on the software. So it has also integrated 10 of those coding strategies of Onebuzi or of Saldana. But for semantic analysis, it focuses on emotion coding. So you are able to get negative, positive, or neutral emotions, and can produce a semantic map and a semantic analysis. But unfortunately, I was only talking about one component today, which is literature review.
Thank you, Dr. King. Eddie, back to you, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Dr. King, and thank you for answering the questions and presenting as well. I think the most prevalent question will be, how are we going to have access to the software? I think Dr. David will, through Dr. King, will facilitate that, because he has our registered names in his database. So now we are going to proceed with presentation of certificate to Dr. King. It's going to be flashed by Dr. Jasmine. I'm going to do something different. I was to read the certificate, but let me invite Dr. King's son. He's here with us. Leto, are you here? Can you unmute yourself and present the certificate to your dad? Is that okay?
Okay, thank you so much, colleagues. My name is Nsawano Lomfolo. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I was not ready, by the way, but thank you so much. The certificate reads as follows: Certificate of Recognition awarded to Dr. King Costa for his evaluatable contribution as a resource speaker on the topic Integrating Qualitative Evidence Approaches in Literature Reviews with Costa QDA software during the AQRA or the AQRA Visual Colloquium #2024-03 held on November 28, 2024. The certificate is presented by the Asian Qualitative Research Association, which is AQRA. It is signed by the President Pavel and the Chief Operation Officer Natasha. Thank you so much.